welcome to the Think Liberty Podcast. I'm Marshall. This is episode 31. In this episode, we have some friends on that are talking to us about a situation going down right now in Boulder where I guess the gun regulations that are facing the community is suboptimal, for lack of a better term. What do I know? I'm not living in it. We'll let them explain that. So why don't we go ahead and have you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name is Jason Boros. I'm a Boulder citizen here.
I'm Lance Psycho. I'm the assistant director of social media at Being Libertarian and the communications director at the Libertarian Party of Colorado and Libertarian Party of Boulder County.
And I'm Lesley Hollywood. I am a longtime Colorado civil rights activist.
Okay, sounds good. So as I understand, you guys have been dealing with this thing head on. So for our listeners, let's go through first what exactly you're facing. So who wants to field that one?
I'll take it. So what we're looking at here with the with what Boulder just passed is basically a ban on all semi-automatic rifles that can accept a magazine of more than 10 rounds, and any semi-automatic pistol that is modeled after a rifle that can accept a magazine of more than 10 rounds as well. They carved out a caveat for pistol magazines for 15-round cap, and but that is only for handguns proper, not pistols modeled after rifles. So basically, this ban is so broad that it bans most semi-automatic rifles that were designed in the 20th century.
So it's interesting. You said a handgun, semi-automatic handguns modeled after rifles. What's an example of that?
Something like an AR pistol would be an example of that. They also showed several handguns where the magazine is not inserted through the grip. They specified that very clearly. So if it's a handgun that accepts a magazine that is inserted to the gun anywhere outside of the primary grip, it's a banned weapon.
Goodness. Okay. That sounds like the Feinstein. I don't know how to say it. That sounds like her ban a bit. And I'm assuming that the bump stocks are included here.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. And as I understand now, you guys have been to multiple sessions locally to try and fight this to make its way through. And what kind of opposition are you guys met with when you're going to those types of events?
Well, the first council meeting, it was pretty dramatic. There were 80 people that spoke out against the ban versus only 30 people who spoke in favor to it. So the first council meeting was very much against this ban. And despite that, the council just pushed forward and pushed it through on first reading.
Yeah, I think at the first council meeting was the amount of people that showed up at just a simple city council meeting was really. I mean, I find it impressive whenever anybody gets excited about something enough to actually get involved with their city council. That's so rare. It's always unfortunate it's for reasons like this. But the first city council meeting there was so many people there. They had to have overflow rooms where people could actually just go watch videos. And the majority of them were there in opposition to this ban. And, unfortunately, it doesn't really matter once you've got organizations like Moms Demand Action who kind of already has their foot in the door. They just, you lose any control of these people actually working for the citizens of the city.
And the first meeting was April 5th, and it was 5 hours and 22 minutes to put it in perspective. And a city council meeting going that long, I'm looking at all of them right now on my iPad, and from like 5 months, and that was one of the longest ones there was. And then I think we should clarify too that so Boulder City Council basically held 3 readings of this. So the first reading was completely open to public comment. The second meeting I didn't attend. The first one I covered as the LP of Colorado, it's just as the communications director. And then the second one I didn't go to. And then the third one was they allowed 15 speakers. So you could sign up randomly on the internet, like on a meetup link. I can't remember exactly what the website is, but and then they drew 5 people that day to speak.
Yeah, unfortunately, we just got creamed on the second meeting. We were still getting organized, and Moms Demand Action and band supporters were able to pretty much occupy every speaking slot on the second reading there.
The biggest thing that I think we saw when it came to this council meeting, and it's not going to be isolated to Boulder, and that's one thing that I really tried to emphasize in kind of all of our trying to just get the word out about this ban, is everyone's like, oh, it's Boulder. I mean, Jason lives in Boulder. Sorry, Jason, but I call it Commeyville, Colorado. I mean, because it's just this kind of this own little utopia. But, unfortunately, just because it's Boulder doesn't mean we can just ignore it. And so I really tried to push this message that this isn't a Boulder issue. This is a Colorado issue, because this stuff will spread really, really fast. And I think what we saw in Boulder was just pure organization by the gun grabbers. Like, they are organized and they know what they're doing, and they're just ready to take over these cities right now.
Yeah, when they announced it, I know I was totally caught off guard, because I know what you're saying about Boulder. I know Boulder consists of 2 basic subgroups of people. There's a large group of very left-leaning liberals in Boulder, and then there's a very large group of pretty centrist libertarians. And I think those are the people that really came out in force, because I think one thing that the council wasn't planning on, and Moms Demand Action wasn't planning on with that first reading, is just how many liberty, live and let live kind of people there are in this town. And there is a huge amount of them.
Man, it sounds so. This is challenging then for you guys. It sounds like you're trying to make it out there. You're going to these things. You're incredibly outnumbered, right? What is one to do? You're outgunned, outnumbered. It seems like you're not only the minority in attendance, but you're not getting as much speaking time.
Yeah. I would just echo one of the things that Lesley said earlier, in that this isn't just about Boulder, it's about Colorado, and then even further than that, the nation. Because if enough of these gun ordinances and these gun bans get brought through the Supreme Court, even if it's just at a circuit level and doesn't go all the way up to the federal level, right? It sets a precedence for these individual towns to spread, semi-repealing of the Second Amendment throughout the nation. I think they have tried it over and over again from a federal level and just kind of, not gotten too far. But I think this is, to me, it's just that's the alarming part about the whole thing, and why I kind of jumped on it. Plus I'm, with the LP and doing all the other stuff I do with BL. But we were making headwind. I feel like we are at a point where there's enough people in the community that want to talk to us now, because we went to my hometown, and I'm grateful for Jason coming there, and then also Lesley helping to push that out. Austin and Patrick, who live in Longmont too. Everybody kind of came together. Gwen Stouter. We kind of swarmed that city council meeting, and I actually sent an email out to the entire city council and the mayor. And luckily, the mayor and I have, he's my attorney at one point, and we've also done business and everything like that. So we're on a good level. But he's also very pro Second Amendment. So he actually, the minute after it went out, or 2 minutes after it went out, he texted me personally and said, "Hey, can I call you?" And we talked about it, and he welcomed us in the meeting, and we kind of stopped that city council from motioning forward with anything, even to the point where a second motion, there had been a previous motion where one of the council members wanted to have kind of like a public discussion about it. But the mayor said, "Hey, as soon as we open up this can, where does it stop? Because people are going to start demanding things on both sides."
So, with a couple of the things I'm hearing, right, you guys are talking about the firearms that are listed, as a part of this regulation. And so I'm sure you guys mentioned this, but have you heard others talking about it? And is there any kind of plan that you know of from the state that outlines how exactly they intend on rounding up because we're talking about a lot of firearms that people already own, right, that are now going to no longer be permitted as legal. Is that correct?
Well, they're not going to be rounding them up, or there's no confiscation in this. And, as we've seen in Denver, every single time that someone's, done a bump stock ban, no one's turned any in. And Denver has an assault weapons ban, and I know people that live in Denver that possess those weapons and just choose not to comply. But nobody comes and takes their guns. What they wanted to do was do registration, and that did end up off the table. But what they want to do is have what they call certification to grandfather guns that were owned before June 13th of this year. And so they want people to go to the police station and give it a certificate that basically says that they're grandfathered in. And they'll be issued 2 copies, and it's up to the gun owner to keep them, is what Boulder's law is stipulating.
Yeah, even Boulder's rather liberal Daily Camera newspaper came out with an article right before this ban passed on the third reading, where they literally just said, I mean, they had interviews with the chief of police in Boulder and with the city attorney, who basically said, we know this is unenforceable. They want people to turn in these firearms for destruction. Like say you live in Boulder and you own an AR-15. That sounds like Jason, if you ask me. They want him to actually take this into the police and turn it in and say, look, I can't have this gun anymore. I'm now a criminal. I wasn't before, but today I am, thanks to you guys. So take my gun and destroy it. So I'm not actually a criminal anymore. Or the other alternative is to actually get a certificate to say that you already owned this gun prior to the ban, and so it's grandfathered in, and keep that with your gun at all times. But nobody's really going to do that. And if they don't do that, they're not going to go door to door. They're not going to actually try to enforce this ban. Really, what they've done is there's 2 gun shops in Boulder who can no longer sell these firearms after, I think it's June 15th is the date. Am I right, Jason, on the date?
It's either the 13th or the 15th, but it's pretty much right there.
Yeah. So it's, so here we have this like unenforceable law that the city attorney who wrote the law is even admitting is unenforceable, that does absolutely nothing to address actual safety in the community, which he admits. I mean, it's nothing but virtue signaling. And they just wasted, I mean, how much time and now how many taxpayer dollars will be going into being sued because the city is already being sued, when they could have actually been addressing how to actually eliminate real crime. Instead, they've like crimes are now after June 15th for sure. Crimes are going to be committed every single day on Jason's street just because he's a gun owner. How ridiculous is that?
Yes, Lesley, it is pretty ridiculous because, in fact, I never owned an AR-15 before Boulder decided to propose the ban. And I think it was the week after they proposed the ban, I decided I was going to go out and buy one.
I wonder how many other people did the same thing. They're like, gosh, if I buy this now, I can legally own it. But after June 15th, can't buy one. So they probably sold tons of AR-15s in the last 3 months.
So this is exactly what happened in the 90s, I think, or I believe so. There was a crackdown on assault weapons. I think it was like 94, and there were these specific, right, and there were specific firearms that were being used in a lot of gang violence, and so they tried to crack down, and they really targeted those weapons. And you can even read reports, from the federal agencies that put these things in place that basically said it did nothing, right? Because what ended up happening is, as a result of the ban being putting in place, people just basically flooded the market to get these things that were about to be banned. So there ended up, after all was said and done, being a net, gain. There a lot more, an addition of how many of these firearms were now out into the public. And they were such a small percentage of what was actually, being done. It's just another prime example of a policy that's done to pander, but it doesn't really do much. And this one, it seems, as you guys are explaining, it's already pretty obviously unenforceable, and it's just going to create criminals, really, for lack of a better term. So, Lesley, you mentioned something about a lawsuit. Does anyone care to explain a little bit more about that and what's going on there?
I mean, I'm more than happy to. So obviously,
Please.
or Lance is welcome to. If anybody I think we all know about the lawsuit. That's kind of Lance
Oh, yeah.
actually did this big push to do a giveaway. We're actually raising money because we're doing a giveaway for a guess what AR-15 to raise money for this lawsuit. Do you want to discuss it, Lance?
So what was amazing was, so the last city council meeting was on May 15th, and that's when they passed it unanimously. And that was where I went up and spoke, and Jason went up and spoke, I think for a third time, because were you at the second meeting, Jason?
I was not. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in to speak at the second one.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, within 24 hours of them, less than 24 hours of them passing it unanimously, they were under a lawsuit. And so I think I have the numbers right here, but all 9 city council members, the city manager, and then the chief of police, I believe, and then the city attorney are all being listed as defendants against 4 plaintiffs. So one of them is a libertarian activist, a well-known one who has a show that Lesley will have to say the name. What show does he have in Boulder?
John
Lesley?
Calderas. He's got Devil's Advocate, which is actually on PBS of all things. And then his show in Boulder, what is that called? I'll be honest, I don't know what his radio show is, but it's on every Sunday night, and it's a big, huge Boulder audience. And people love John Caldera in Boulder. He's the president of the Independence Institute. Super, super great guy. I've known him for years. But yeah, he has a show called Devil's Advocate on PBS here in Colorado. That's how prominent this person is.
So he's the lead. He's the lead plaintiff, and then there's I think one of the rifle ranges, and then
Boulder
one of
Rifle Club.
Yeah, the Boulder Rifle Club, and then Bison Tactical, which sells all of these rifles, and then the icing on the cake is that they have a CU student that's one of the plaintiffs, because he's a shooter, and you have to be 21 now to be able to shoot the kind of weapon, the guns that he shoots. So and one of the estimates that they're saying is that it's going to be about $1 million to defend each person on city council and so forth, to defend them from the city of Boulder. And I think Jason has said this before, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but the city of Boulder is already $4 million in the hole. They're
running a $4 million budget deficit.
So the virtue signal really ends up costing about $12 million.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty incredible. And that's just the first lawsuit.
The city seems to like frivolous lawsuits. That they're planning on right now beginning to push a lawsuit against all petroleum companies for climate change.
Wow. Super, super progressive.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Boulder. But what that leads to is sort of Lesley, the push that Lesley kind of hinted at and teased at before that we're doing right now, and trying to help raise money for the Mountain States Legal Foundation.
Right. And so if someone wanted to help, or if someone was listening and wanted to donate to that, how could they go about doing that?
So what I would tell them to do is go to our website, rallyforourrights.com, and right there on the home page is the information about how to enter the mystery giveaway. So, we all know Facebook has all these rules and regulations, right? And one of them is that you can't actually do a giveaway for a firearm. So we're like, how do we get around that? And we determined that if we called it a mystery giveaway, and if you go to our website, you'll see how we're doing this is we basically have a word graphic in the shape of an AR-15, but it's a mystery giveaway. What could it possibly be? Valued at $620.
Right, I saw that. I was a little confused.
And donated from Gunsport, a gun shop right there in Boulder, Colorado. What could this mystery giveaway be?
I wonder what it is. So weird.
Yeah. So anyways, we just, the way it works, Colorado has some kind of heavy-handed gambling laws. So we can't actually do a raffle without getting into the gambling issue. So we're just doing a giveaway. Any donation equals a entry into this giveaway. And we are, as long as you live in an area where we can transfer an AR-15 from a gun shop here to a gun shop there, an FFL to an FFL, people can enter this giveaway, and anywhere in the country, right here in Colorado, even right in Boulder, because we will make sure that this is done before the ban officially goes through. So people can find out about it and enter on rallyforourrights.com.
Okay. So anyone listening that might be interested in doing that, go do that. It sounds like it'll help their cause. I'm all for this lawsuit, so I'll make sure I'll throw in a little there myself. So, short of donating to this legal fund, this is concerning. So, are there things that you guys that people can do outside of the donating to help you guys? And as a larger question to anyone that wants to answer it, what are some things as now that you guys have been dealing with it, would you suggest for other people that they could do to maybe prevent this kind of thing from snowballing like it has in Boulder, aside from not living in California or Boulder?
Get active. Write your city councils. Get out ahead of mom's demand.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would tell people right now is that right now is not the time to be the silent majority. Like you were saying earlier, Vinny, you were saying that we were outnumbered. And the truth is that we're not outnumbered. We're out vocalized, right? Because people who are gun owners, people who are libertarians, conservatives, whatever you want to call us, tend to generally want to mind our own business. This is, a very huge theme across this whole segment of society. We aren't out there talking about our guns, talking about our rights, things like that. But which is fine. That's part of what we advocate for, I believe. But right now is not the time, and that's kind of what started Rally for Our Rights. Rally for Our Rights actually started prior to getting involved in Boulder. We started just before that. And we were kind of in opposition to the March for Our Lives, because here we have, I for one, and I know I speak for probably millions of people in this country, I for one was so frustrated seeing millions of people take to the streets to advocate for taking away our firearms, for taking away our rights. So right now is not the time to be quiet, because those people are being loud, and we need to be either just as loud or louder. And if that means you write your city council members, start paying attention, go to your city council meetings. Even if you're by yourself, go sit through a city council meeting, because you might be surprised that Moms Demand Action is right in there trying to get them to do stuff, and nobody knows until it's passing into an ordinance like what happened in Boulder.
Yeah, I feel like it's gotten almost trendy in a sense for a lot of people to be kind of politically apathetic, to the point where, just as is being described here, you go to these things and you show up, you're the minority in vocal support, for rights, and it's because people know that all they really got to do is get up and go to these things. Get up and be there, and not a lot of people are doing that right now, and the ones that are, seems like, are the ones that are really ready to restrict and regulate stuff.
Yeah, but what's been amazing is watching Lesley with Rally for Our Rights grow the Facebook page. When did you start the Facebook page, Lesley? Because I feel like the Facebook page and the group just exploded. I mean, I remember seeing numbers when it was only a few hundred people in the group, and now I think we're at 1,600.
So we had our very first, so a little bit about Rally for Our Rights. We had our very first rally. What we actually do, so Colorado, because I know we have a lot of nationwide listeners that will listen to this podcast, Colorado is actually a constitutional open carry state. Now, what that means is that you can literally open carry any legal firearm anywhere in the state, as long as there's not an ordinance in a city that restricts it, which amazingly there aren't very many. So what we've done is we just started, when we started seeing these marches happen, myself and then a gentleman who lives nearby me, who I've just kind of known for years doing local politics, we got together and said, let's pull out some Second Amendment supporters onto the streets and let's do what they're doing. Let's let them open carry. We'll bring our signs, we'll bring our flags, and we'll go from there. And our very first event was April 7th, and it was in Loveland, Colorado, and it was cold that day. The day before it had snowed. That day it was like 20 some degrees that morning. and we didn't know what to expect, but we had over 500 people on the streets in Loveland, Colorado, which is a very small town. And it was just an absolutely phenomenal sight to see all these people. We had people open carrying AR-15s. We had people with just their pistols on their hips. We had people with no guns and signs. It was just such a mixed group of people that we were like, gosh, we need to. Like everyone just wanted to know, when's the next one? When's the next one? What are we doing next? There was such a hunger to do something, because all they needed was a leader. They needed some leaders to get in there and say, here's what we're going to do to help counteract what is happening in this country right now. And as soon as we did that, like Lance was saying, it just took off. I mean, I met Jason, and boom, it was time to do Boulder. And we did one of these rallies, same thing, open carrying, AR-15s, pistols on your hips. We did one of those on the streets of Boulder, and it was snowing that morning. It was not a very cold day. And that was 2 weeks later, and we had probably close to 600 people out there in Comeyville, Colorado.
Well, most of our support there, Lesley, was great.
And it was a phenomenal sight. And from there, it's just grown so fast.
Not only were the numbers in Boulder on that April 21st rally really great, a lot of the support from just passerby was much better than we expected.
And we only had a few people, flip us off, and they instantly became memes, because we're all on the internet constantly. So we memed the person. It was hilarious, and then he went viral. And one of the things that, like, right after the rally was, and I'm reading a headline from the Daily Camera. One of the city councilmen said he was disturbed by what he saw at a pro-guns rally in downtown Boulder on Saturday. Sam Weaver is the city councilman, was saying that, and then it went on to say, like, he's dropping his idea that a proposed ban on the sale and possession of certain assault weapons should go to voters, and believes that something should be done sooner rather than later. So, right after that rally, we already kind of, everybody said, even at the first meeting, that they're just gonna ram this down, Boulder, the citizens of Boulder's throats.
And that they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we had a city council member that drove by and saw this rally of gun toting gun supporters, right there in the city, where, like, I mean, it was like, I mean, when I told people that we were taking this to Boulder, we went from Loveland, which is very, very 2A friendly anyways. Our first rally was in warm territory. When I told people we were taking that from Loveland to Boulder, they were like, are you crazy, Lesley? Are you out of your mind? And I was like, no, this is what you do. We're going to ground zero. Not only was it ground zero, but they were trying to pass this ordinance. This is where it needed to happen. And yeah, to see a city council member come back and be like, oh my gosh, those people came to my city with guns. How dare they? Yeah, we went to your city with guns. And you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. There was,
and we have the pictures to prove it. One of the best pictures was it was absolutely spotless and clean when we left. Unlike there's other kind of protests we've seen after the election.
Where it's just a mess. It looks like the stadium for a football game after everyone's left the parking lot. And I think that should be alarming to more people. Is that you've essentially got a councilman saying this is gross. The fact that there's opposition to this political issue, right? Shocker. That is all the more reason why we just need to streamline it and not open this up to public opinion. That should be horrifying for people to hear. That is not something that should be a welcoming thing to hear for anybody. It should motivate people to get out there and speak up, right? Just having the idea of, I don't like the fact that this is opposed, so we need to streamline it and make sure people can't oppose it. That's not good.
Well, just the fact that they were trying to decide people's rights behind closed doors, period.
That's right. That's right.
Is not okay.
And one thing that was really interesting in Boulder was that Boulder is such a eclectic, like, group of people. It's like we had and I didn't really know what to expect going into this rally in Boulder. People were telling me, "Oh gosh, you're going to have Antifa there. They're going to be throwing bullets at you guys. It's going to be dangerous." And I'm like, "Oh, come on. We're all carrying AR-15s. Seriously? Like, you think they're going to come and try to start shit?" And you know what happened? You know how many counter protesters we had? 0. Absolutely not a one counter protester did we have in Boulder. And you know what? You know why? Because they don't know what to do with us. We're this odd group of people that they're just like there's hundreds of them out in the streets. About half of them have guns. About a dozen, maybe 2 dozen, are carrying rifles. Yeah, it's I didn't really know what to expect when we went out there. But what was very interesting was the people that walked by us, just bystanders, that were just happening up and down the streets where we were. They stopped and talked to us. I mean, one guy, I don't know if you remember this, Jason, the guy that went around and gave us all high fives.
Yeah.
He was like, "Thanks for being here, you guys."
Yep.
He was probably some like young stoned hippie in his early 20s, That's Boulder for you. They're not afraid of guns. That's the thing. We all have guns. We come out there and we show people that we actually all own these firearms, and the only people who are scared of them are the city council members.
Yeah, I don't think people know really what to think about us because we're such an eclectic group. We break the the angry white male clinging to his gun stereotype because our group is just so eclectic with so many people from so many different backgrounds.
And I find it interesting that you guys were received well by everybody. You keep talking about how everyone was just so cool with you, and the people that were passing by.
Yeah, it was pretty laid back. We had at the Boulder rally, I think there was, Lesley, do you remember that Bernie supporter? There was a Bernie supporter there. I mean,
Yeah, there was a guy who came with a Bernie Sanders shirt on. And I mean, we have one guy who's an Obama voting Democrat, and so is his girlfriend, who owns Eric Cater, who owns Boulder Lending Group, which happened to be right on our rally path. And he opened up his whole office to us because he's a Second Amendment supporter. Like, this is one thing we've done since the very beginning of Rally for Our Rights, is we've said you have to keep your partisan politics at home. If you want to be part of this group, you cannot bring your Trump flags, you cannot bring your political signs, your literature, none of that. Like, you have to keep partisan politics at home, because that's how you bring out this is cause focused. And when you're dealing with city ordinances, when you're dealing with issues like this and killing bills down in the state legislature and things like that, I mean, all you have to do is rally behind a cause, not a political party. And that's one beautiful thing. I'm a Republican, but as a Republican who has a lot of libertarian friends, and even though my whole family's Democrats, like, I understand that being nonpartisan is what we need to do. We need to come together under the umbrella of a cause to actually affect change, and we're actually doing a great job at that.
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting things about this, and I rant and rave about it. I did it over the whole weekend at the unconvention. That's the best part about this whole group is we have a very eclectic group of all. I'm not sure we have a lot of lefties in the group. I mean, that is what it is. But there's conservatives, constitutionalists, libertarians, Republicans, anarchists. The whole spectrum, and everybody's friendly, and we're focused, and it feels like we're actually doing something, and we are doing something. On I think June 7th or June 6th, Lesley will have to correct me, but the city, or not the city of Niwot, but in Niwot, there's going to be, or it's about the Niwot and one other school. Lesley, what is the other school that I'm missing out on here?
So what it is it's St. Vrain Valley School District, which is actually one of our larger school districts here in Colorado. It encompasses Longmont, Niwot, Lyons, Netherland, a lot of different small towns, like Firestone's that part of that town, but it's very, very large, and actually this sits right outside of the city of Boulder. So the city of Niwot, part of this is what Lance is talking about, what they're about to do, this school district. They sit literally 5 miles outside of Boulder, Colorado. But go ahead,
Yeah,
Lance.
and what they're going to talk about. So the superintendent of the St. Vrain School District emailed everybody, and everybody's welcome to the meeting. If you're a parent that your kids are in public school, my kids are in public school in the district, and they're talking about possibly putting in a long gun in a safe box in the school. And what we want to do is we want to introduce Faster Colorado to them. And Lesley can speak more about this because she's more well versed. But Faster Colorado is, in short, it's a way of enabling staff and teachers, if they want to be armed in a deep and concealed way, and in different ways to fight against this nasty stuff.
Yeah. So what Faster Colorado is what they do is, so Colorado is kind of unique, and people don't know this, but it is actually legal. It's actually a Colorado revised statute right now that school district or school officials, teachers, admin, your music teacher, your art teacher, your PE teacher, it is legal for them right now to conceal carry, but they have to have permission from the school board. This is actually a Colorado law. And the reason that we have this law is actually because we have a lot of rural school districts, kind of out in these outskirts field type of areas in Colorado, where a response time is very, very slow. So out there, they already arm themselves. They already have their school districts to have approved teachers or PE teachers. Like those are just armed schools. Of course, there's never any school shootings out there. It's more in the populated, dense areas where it's more progressive. And of course, this idea that, gosh, teachers could arm themselves is so scary. So what Faster Colorado has done is they've actually they're working with some of your most advanced firearms training instructors to provide teachers who will voluntarily do this with far more extensive training than is required by the law, that includes deep concealment. It includes, tactical training, trauma training. So what if this teacher is in that school? Maybe they didn't stop a shooter, but maybe they actually can help save lives. So trauma training, all of this stuff. They have scholarships. So if schools can't afford it, they'll pay for it for them. It's this very, very extensive program, and we have it right here in Colorado. People can learn about it at fastercolorado.com, but it's very unknown. And so I've been working with Laura Carno, who's the person who's kind of leading up this whole effort. So we're excited to see that St. Vrain Valley School District is actually talking about allowing long guns to be locked up, right? So they're saying in these slow response times, because Niwot's 5 miles outside of Boulder, probably 5 miles outside of Longmont. So they're saying we have a slower response time, therefore we should have a long gun or some sort of a rifle locked up in a safe in the office. Okay, well, that's a fantastic idea, and it's moving in the right direction. So now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, this is great, you're thinking about this. Will you then learn about this other idea too? Because it'd be fantastic to actually see a district like St. Vrain, that's like sits right next to Boulder, to see them pick up an idea like this. So it's great that we're seeing these things happening. What's also really neat is that since we've kind of started getting active and rally for our rights in this whole Second Amendment cause, that all of a sudden we're picking up on these different things that are happening. It's like every other week there's something new, and we're able to share it with people who are now connected and turn them out to meetings so that they can actually make their voices heard and eventually and hopefully affect some change.
I like it, and that's something that's good to hear. So on that vein, then, we're talking about people getting up and going out and having their voice be heard. I love it. But one thing that I think, right, we haven't dug into a little bit, and I'd like to hear you guys speak on, is for people that are going to get out there and they are going to raise their voice about their concerns on these kind of regulations. What are some of the arguments that you guys are meeting? What are some of the things that you hear when, you guys talked about, you've had these sessions now where you went and you talked and both sides were there. So what kind of things are the other side saying, and what are you guys saying to kind of combat that? What are you meeting it with?
Jason, why don't you talk about your last session with MDA?
Oh, okay. Well, at when we went to the Longmont City Council meeting, there were some MDA members that were leaving, and I decided to go out on a limb and walk up to them and introduce myself and have a conversation, basically about how, we both have a common goal of having safe communities and having our children be safe when they're out in public or in school. And, you know, uh, they really like that when you approach them with, hey, this is where we have a common ground. But that's kind of where we parted ways on a lot of things because, I try to when I speak to these anti-gunners, try to move the conversation away from guns because the issue really isn't guns. We've always had guns in America. There's something else has changed that's causing kids to decide to shoot each other. And so, they seem to disagree with that fundamental premise that it's more about people than machines. They feel that it's more about the firearms themselves, and if people didn't have access to them, these things wouldn't happen. And you point out to them that in countries such as Australia or England or a lot of Europe that have very strict gun laws, they have a similar overall violent crime rate to the U.S. or even higher. But their favorite statistic is gun violence. So they always say, well, the U.S. has some of the worst gun violence, and you say, well, if you look at the U.S. as an overall crime rate, they fall apart. And so they don't seem to want to listen to points like that. They want to say, well, why do you need an AR-15? And generally, I'll state back that it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. And generally, they don't like that very much.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, have any of you guys tried? And I'm sure you have, but I'm just curious to hear. Right. So, do you ever try to meet any of their concerns with, like statistics that kind of back up, like, people a lot of times like to no one needs to own an AR-15, and then once you kind of drill down to it, if you look at these overall statistics, you get something like the amount of gun violence is the most slippery term. So the amount of homicides that are caused by firearms, of those that are rifles, I think is a pretty small percent. I'm not exactly sure what it is, so I'm not going to try and.
Let me read you a quote from the first
There you
meeting.
go. Perfect.
So this is like I recorded that was kind of my main thing with the article that I wrote right after that first reading was I just cited what people said.
Perfect.
So this gal Jasmine Carter had to say, most murders by gun are committed by handguns, not AR-15s or the described supposed assault weapons defined by this ordinance. More people are murdered by knives, blunt objects, and personal weapons such as hands and feet. 1,595 knives, 446 blunt, and 682 hands and feet compared with rifles, 258. So, we heard a lot of that, this speech from pro-NRA, pro-Second Amendment, pro-rights people, liberty-minded people. There was a lot of statistics, but it just kept on falling on deaf ears. I mean, and then the opposite of it was we just heard over and over again just emotional arguments. So it's just a different, there's a split. One side's processing it different one way, and another one is processing it the other way. And then we try to do things like Jason said, where you bring the emotion into it and say, look, we want the same thing. We want public safety. When I gave my speech, I said, look, I send my kids to public school and I worry about them all the time, 100%. One of my 13-year-olds asked for a plate to put in his backpack, and we got him one. So.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that Jason talks about, the talking with the Moms Demand Action women, is a lot of these women are kind of brought into, and I in my opinion, as a mom, I'm actually a single mom of daughters. So if you want to talk about that, we have our Second Amendment right, which I'm a constitutionalist to my core, so of course that matters to me. But I'm also a single mom of little girls. So to me, self-defense is incredibly important. So these Moms Demand Action women, they frustrate me because it's like, well, what are you going to do to protect your family? Like, why do you want to take away my ability to protect my daughters? I should what? If somebody busts into my house, I'm supposed to what? Find my cell phone and call 911 and hope that they get there before anything bad happens? It's ridiculous. But the idea that we talk to them, I think, is really important because they're brought into this whole movement through this idea that we don't want to take anyone's guns away. We want common sense gun control. Well, what they don't understand, one, are guns, and two, common sense. But when we start talking to them, maybe we will never bring them to our side. This is actually something interesting that happened at one of our rallies we had in Fort Collins, Colorado. We had one organized counter protester show up. This guy came to counter protest our protest, right? One single person had a fuck Trump shirt on, although not a single one of us had a Trump flag, but whatever. Um, and he came there because he thought we were these horrible, evil people. By the end of that rally, he had come to our side. Not he wasn't going to be he didn't want to run out and buy guns. He didn't want to necessarily own firearms, but he realized that everything he had been told over all the years by the liberal left media was wrong, and that we were actually completely different than he thought we would be. So I think that we have the opportunity to talk to these moms demand action women, the people that can talk to them without losing their cool. And if anything, we may never bring them to our side. They may never go out and want to own firearms, but maybe they'll quit, right? Maybe they'll just say, I've been lied to by these folks. These guys actually seem all right. I kind of don't want to do this after all. I'm stepping down. So maybe some of these just members who are all excited to be activists, maybe they'll just stop. Like, wouldn't that be great? Maybe we can't bring them to our side, and that shouldn't be an expectation. But gosh, if we could just get them to rethink what they're doing and just stay home and not go to that city council meeting, that's a huge victory on our part, in my opinion.
Yeah, they were difficult here in Boulder. I'm sure you remember that one, Lesley, with when there was a counter proposal. I'm not sure if you know about this, Vinny, but there's a counter proposal introduced in Boulder that was trying to basically replace what the city council was proposing. And it did meet a lot of Moms Demand Action. I believe there was a bump stock ban in there. There was even a red flag portion of it, although in the counter proposal, there was a lot of due process in that portion of it. And then what else did they put in there? The counter proposal included raising age to purchase a long gun to 21, and for semi-automatic rifles, not a ban, but essentially, I think the wording was a higher bar of ownership, such as having a CCW or concealed weapons permit, or taking basic hunter safety, or engaging in a shooting club or something like that would qualify you for going through that. And local Moms Demand Action actually burned that counter proposal to the ground because to them it didn't go far enough. It wasn't an outright ban with full confiscation, no grandfathering, no registration, just you're done. You can no longer own your property.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing. I mean that counter proposal. I mean, to me, it was still an infringement on our rights. But I don't live in Boulder like Jason does, so of course Jason's like, hell yeah, please pass this and not this. But Moms Demand Action wouldn't even come to the table. What they once they saw it and they realized that it was actually somewhat reasonable and might actually, it probably might have actually helped with gun safety in the city of Boulder. They were just like, no way. Without registration, without confiscation, they did not want to have anything to do with it. So some of these women, and I think it's the ones who are actually really in charge, they're absolutely insane. And actually, we were told that by some people who had some firsthand experience right there in the city council of Boulder. These women are absolutely insane, but their members are brought in through false premises. And that's what I think is important to remember, is that we can actually reach out to those members and we can let them know that this is what happened in Boulder. This is how actually extreme your organization you're involved in is. They don't just want to have common sense gun control. They want to take away guns. They want confiscation and registration, just like they had in Germany at one point. I mean, it's insanity what's happening. they're turning gun owners into a hate group, as John Caldera said it, and it's very, very true. We've been talking a lot lately about coming out of the closet as gun owners. Like, now that we have this rally for our rights in Colorado, which is just growing, I mean, it's only been going since the beginning of April, and gosh, like 2 months now. What has happened is insanity, because there is such a need for it. But it's literally gun owners who are now coming out of the closet because they feel like they're not alone. And that's just sad. That's sad that that's the society we're living in today.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's I can't help it. I'm listening, to the stuff we're getting into here, and we common sense gun laws. Like, nothing of what has been described here is common sense, right? We've talked about a policy that everyone pretty much knows is unenforceable, and that's not to mention the fact that this whole premise is absolutely not common sense, right? If you're at it, isolate it to just your universe, right? And if you're at a place, your home, your residence, and it keeps getting attacked, right? What's the most common sense thing for you to do? Would it be to go and to find ways and to make measures to defend your home? Or would it be to set out and make sure that no one could have weapons anymore? Right? There's nothing common sense about.
Well,
There isn't. Like, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to get onto like the Moms Demand Action website and pull up the statistics? I mean, here I am sitting with my two daughters tonight, who are 6 and 10. My oldest one's 19, and she's already moved out, although she's still here in town, thank goodness. But and she's actually, my oldest daughter, who's 19, actually came to our Fort Collins rally open carrying a handgun, because she's not even anything to do with me, but she's actually been training herself to protect herself. I mean, she's a beautiful 19-year-old woman. She absolutely should be able to do that. But what am I supposed to do if somebody busts in my front door and tries to attack my daughters and myself? Get on momsdemandaction.com and pull up the statistics that says, well, you're not actually supposed to be here right now because you're not this stereotypical person that's supposed to own this gun. I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? No, you know what I want to do? I want to pull out the firearm that I'm going to have the best ability to have a good shot to get that person out of my home or take him down. And that is going to be probably a rifle, one that Boulder wants to ban.
Right. And that brings up a good point too, is with a lot of these things. You look at Australia, they passed their NFA. The first thing that happened were the incidents involving firearms, where someone may not have necessarily died. And this is how the issue is completely missed. It's swept under the rug because there was no homicide. There's no body, right? But the incidents where there was a crime and a firearm was involved skyrocketed. It gets ignored, but it's a very real byproduct of regulation.
Boulder's a city of 108,000 people. And what makes this ordinance even more ridiculous just on its face is that in all of 2017, one person was killed with a firearm in a city of 108,000 people, and that was a handgun.
That was in the last 6 years. That was part of my speech on the third reading, was that stating that, and I flat out asked everybody, what problem are you guys solving? And then that's kind of where, it boils down to, is that it really shines a light on, yes, it's a 100% virtue signal. There's no problem that you guys are solving. You're creating problems, and what's ultimately disappointing to me as a libertarian is we legalized marijuana, and cannabis. We finally stopped criminalizing people just for owning a plant, just possessing a thing. And then we go right back to it. You're like, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah, no, it's out of control. And, for anyone listening that's interested and that's motivated by hearing this, I'm going to get up on a soapbox for a second, because this is frustrating to me. This issue frustrates me a lot, because the amount of cognitive dissonance that goes on with the left on this topic specifically is infuriating. You've got these situations, and Jason, you talked about this when you said gun violence, right? And so this is the favorite term of the left, is gun violence, right? What is gun violence? So if you peel it back and you go to one of these places like Everytown and you look at their statistics that they set up, it's really easy to force data in places and make it say things that you want it to say. But if you peel it back and you look at it, the situation's much different than it's being made out to be. Every town has these charts that have these numbers of gun violence in each country, and the United States is like completely off the charts. And what it fails to do when it presents those numbers that everyone walks around talking about and using as their metric for how fucked everything is the fact that it, almost a majority of it, 75% of it, maybe 60% of it is suicides. Right? That's the core of the issue, Jason. You talked about it earlier. It's not the guns, it's the issue. This issue still exists, right? People hear this stuff that's all fuzzy from Now This that shares a video on Facebook that has a couple data points that say, hey, Australia eliminated suicides by firearm. Australia eliminated mass shootings. Yeah, that's all well and good, but Australia still had mass murders, right? They just used something other than guns.
Their murder rate is still similar to the United States right now.
Exactly. And in 2016, Australia had the highest rate of suicide that it's had since well before the NFA was put into place. So what did you really solve? You really solved instances. You solved things for criminals, making it easier to take things from people because you've got a whole lot more instances where people are now accosted on the streets by firearms. But no one died, so that's fine because it doesn't end up on a stat sheet. Right. That's a whole lot of common sense. Get out of here.
Well, and it's just like with suicide. I mean, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about violence on one person or another person, or even mass violence or suicide. I actually have a sister who committed suicide 3.5 years ago, and she didn't do it with a firearm. She did it with prescription pills that were prescribed to her for years by a doctor. She was prescribed Percocet and Vicodin, 30-day supplies of both every 30 days. So in the end, when she decided to go ahead and take her own life, it was with a bottle of pills. It wasn't with a firearm. But I can tell you that people who want to take their lives are going to do it. If they have a firearm, that might be an easy way for them. If they don't have a firearm, they're still going to take their life. They'll just take a bottle of pills. I mean, it's not like they're not going to just not do it.
Right. Those people are already dead before they commit the crime, either on themselves or everybody else. I mean, Jordan Peterson goes over that in detail in his new book. It is, and I truly believe that's where it's at. These people have already made up their mind. They're going to find it. If there's a will, there's a way, and they'll make it happen. I don't think we're just deflecting every single time. And what sucks is now there's even some articles coming out I saw today on Facebook that are saying that the video came out from this kid's, Nicholas Cruz's cell phone, where he basically says he did it just for the fame. They're just trying to be these 15-minute stars, and then the media keeps exploding and and showing their faces and everything like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting that came out, Lance, because that's pretty much along the exact lines of what I was telling the Longmont City Council when I spoke to them. Is that we have an obsession with celebrity culture in the United States, and the more we publicize these kids doing this, the more the next one's going to want to do it, but bigger and badder than the kid before him.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, everyone wants the screen time. Absolutely. And it's I mean, man, you got to think about it. It's cruel to a certain point, right? When you think about it, because the argument starts getting into a really dark place when you're the one supporting regulation, when you start discussing suicide, right? Because if you want to discuss, I got the air quotes up here, gun violence in North America, you should be talking about suicides. Right? You're talking about 60% of the people that die in America, it's from suicide. So you start talking about it and people will make the argument of, yeah, but if, guns were harder to obtain, then people, might not do it. So then you're essentially getting to an argument where you're like, look, I know you want to kill yourself, but I'm just going to take away all the stuff that'll let you do it. Like, so before you care to address why do you want to kill yourself, your initial reaction is just, let's just make sure there's no sharp objects anywhere in your universe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never actually heard it put that way, but as somebody who lost my sister to suicide, gosh, that hits me like right in the heart. And that's so true. What you just said is that nobody's trying to figure out why they want to kill, whether it's themselves or others. They just want to take away their ability to do it. And it's not going to stop anything. It's just going to make them continue to want to do it and find different ways to do it.
Right, just like that guy in Toronto.
Right, you're not addressing the issue. you're taking an upset person, a person so upset that they would be moved to doing something so intense, and really all you're doing is controlling them. You're not addressing anything. You're just saying, look, I know that you want to end your life, but I'm just going to take some stuff away from you.
Yeah, we don't care why you want to end your life. I mean, like, we're just gonna make it harder for you to do. I mean, like, that's almost it's like actually very uncompassionate, if that's even a word. But it's very cold and hard, and but that's absolutely what we are doing right now in today's society.
Yeah, like I said, it's a dark place to argue from. It's one of those things it surprises me why more people don't step back as they are making that argument and realize, like, wow, I'm the devil. Like, what am I saying right now?
I'm gonna take that to some radio shows next week. Actually, I do a lot of radio, so I'm gonna take that to some radio shows. That's
Fantastic.
actually really good.
Nice.
Okay, well, I've had a good amount of your guys' time this evening, and we're getting a little bit late, so I'm eager to give you your night back. But before I do, is there, I'll give you guys all a chance to give some closing statements if you want, or if you want to plug the place that people can find some of these groups again, or that maybe someone can go and donate if they want to and they missed it in the beginning.
Lead the way, Lesley.
Sure, I'll go ahead and lead the way. Yeah, so anybody who's interested in getting involved in our organization, especially if you're Colorado based, if you're not, you can still be involved. I would recommend just go to rallyforourrights.com. There's a tab on there, get connected. You can find out how to follow us on Facebook, Twitter. We have a private Facebook group that we do a very good job of vetting all the members. And that's actually a very active group, great discussions that go on in there. And people can also go there. We have a calendar. We even have, anything you can think of is on our calendar right now. And our next rally is on June 9th in Boulder, 1 to 4 p.m. And it's going to be kind of it's going to be along Broadway Street and Canyon Boulevard. But you can get all the information on our calendar there on our website, rallyforourrights.com. But anybody that's in Colorado or just wants to come to Colorado and join us for one of these events, they're super, super fun. I can guarantee you will have a good time. And great cause. Definitely go to our mystery giveaway page on rallyforourrights.com. And all you have to do is make a donation of any size to the Mountain States Legal Foundation, which we have all the links right there. And then you can enter our giveaway for our mystery prize. What could that possibly be? It's an AR-15. What could that possibly be? But yeah, so anyways, a great place to go, get connected. We'd love to have anybody interested to just come join us and just join our cause and stop being that silent majority, because if we are silent anymore, we are going to lose this fight.
Yeah, get out there and organize some rallies yourselves, listeners.
Yeah, I don't know how to ever. Lesley nails it 100% of the time. She's been one of the co-spearheads of this whole thing. It's awesome. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out. Check out the website for sure. I'm excited to go back to Boulder. The only other thing I would have to say is, if you are a listener outside of Colorado and you want to do something like this on a grassroots level, I'm going to flood Lesley's email box. But just find her on Rally for Our Rights and message that Facebook page, or go to the website and get in contact that way and ask how, I'm sure she could just write, a quick email and let you know how to get involved. But seeing what she's been doing in Colorado and being a part of it is phenomenal. And so you just go out there and get it done 100%.
Yeah, I was going to echo what Lance said. Lesley's a hard act to follow. But it's hard and it takes courage. But people need to get out there and get active and make their voices heard and speak out against things that aren't right, and organize and network with people, reach out and get involved and get engaged. There's 100 million gun owners in America and only 4 million active anti-gun members. And it's ridiculous that they're louder than we are.
It is a pretty odd phenomenon. You see all these, I'm sure you guys have seen the videos that mirror the two different marches with each other, and they show the March for Our Lives marches with just people flooding the streets. And then they show some of these gun rallies, for 2A, and they seem kind of desolate. And before we go, I hate to keep you guys longer, but this is kind of connected to me. Do you guys suspect that a lot of the people that are showing up for these like March for Our Lives stuff are this kind of the same like Occupy Wall Street types, to where you saw the media out there asking them what they were standing up for, and they're like, I don't know. I'm just tired of working, so I came here with a sign, and here I am. Like, people at a certain point, it's just the popular thing, and they're just all going to group together in the same place.
I think there is a huge chunk of groupthink with a lot of the anti-2A rallies. Also, one of the hardest things about getting people out for 2A rallies is a lot of gun owners are hardworking people that have day jobs and families, and so they're it's hard for them to put in the time.
Right. Well, it's refreshing to hear that folks like you guys are finding ways to get out there and put in the time. Lance knows as good as anybody. You can share a couple of the right memes or a couple of the right articles, and you can reach a lot of people these days by doing it. So I think it's important for people to notice that there's alternative ways to get out there and make your voice heard and influence other people, in at least educating them and showing them the things that they aren't being shown, as you guys talked about at the top of the show, with people that are being lied to with different narratives. There's a lot of different ways out there that people can get involved and start spreading the message.
Well, and I just want to touch real quick on what you just asked, because I actually think with March for Our Lives, there's kind of a new segment of activists that are being born right now. And I think that's one reason it's so important that we stand up right now and counter that message, because these are people who are heartbroken and upset over seeing things like what happened in Parkland, Florida. I have children. I've got 2 children in public school right now, one going into first grade and one going into 5th grade. And then I have a daughter who just graduated last year. And yeah, this stuff is scary. That's one thing that Lance talked about when he spoke at the Boulder City Council meeting. This stuff is scary to parents, but the problem is that they don't know where to go. So what we need to do as activists, as human rights activists ourselves, who say that humans should have the right to self-defense, is that we need to speak up, and we need to be a place that those same people can come. When we're not there, they will go to the other side. So these people are confused and they're scared, and they're looking for an answer. We need to be that answer.
I like it. It's damn motivating stuff, Lesley. You need to.
Thanks.
I can already imagine you, handling the megaphone.
I get a little passionate sometimes.
I like it. All right. Well, we can go ahead and cut it there if you guys want. So you can check out our website at think-liberty.com. And don't forget to check out our store. Get the coolest shirts in the Liberty movement. We're making Liberty rad to wear again. And you can get our shirts pretty cheap, starting out at under $17. We got baseball shirts, t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, and more. So get in there. Buy yourself the most punk rock Rothbard and Hayek shirt you'll find on the internet. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ThinkLibertyTL, on Twitter at @think_liberty, and we're at Steemit and Minds at think_liberty as well. We're on Instagram as ThinkLiberty, spelled in one word. And if you like this episode and you like our podcast, please tell a friend. The most effective way that we can grow this podcast is by word of mouth. Well, to our guests, thank you for letting us burn through your time for this episode. To our listeners, on behalf of everyone who joined me tonight, thank you for listening. And we hope you join us next Tuesday for another episode. Whether or not you like it, we'll probably be back again.